Want to welcome everybody here this morning as we honor our veterans of our Persian Gulf, Iraq, Afghanistan, and the global war on terror. Veterans have marched down from Covington Street. A number of them are police and firefighters in our city, so they continue to serve. We welcome veterans of all branches, of all conflicts and wars here this morning. This is truly sacred ground here at Mount Wollaston. And this latest monument will be a beautiful tribute to this generation of veterans. The cemetery was dedicated in 1855, and the first war monument here is the Civil War monument to your left and my far right. So this is very fitting. At this time, I'm going to ask those folks who are veterans who are assigned to their flagpole based on their branch, please head to the pole if you haven't. Representative of the U.S. Army, we have Tom Lester and William Eastwick. Marines, Jeff Hannon, Paul and Aidan Brown. Navy, Director of Veteran Services, Christine Cugini, and Quincy Fire Department Lieutenant Sean Darcy. Air Force, we have Gene Buckley, Thomas Callahan, and Ryan Brennan. Space Force, Cadets, Athena, Dong, and Kitty Chan. And Coast Guard, John Christiani Jr., and QPD Lieutenant Robert Gillen. You will raise your flag as the theme of your branch is played. I'd ask our North Quincy High School marching band, headed up by Matt Cavanaugh and Michael DeMarco, please begin with our military medley. Please remain standing. I'd ask Commander Aaron Miller, U.S. Naval Reserve Center Quincy, please, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now our national anthem by, again, North Quincy High School Band. This time I'd invite Quincy resident Father Kevin Deely, U.S. Navy chaplain from 1995 to 2012. He's a priest of the Archdiocese of Boston, currently in the faculty of Pope John XXIII Seminary. Father Deely.
Please join me in a moment of prayer today. Almighty God, we ask your blessing on our gathering today as our community remembers those who have recently served our country and dedicates this memorial to them. We honor particularly today the fallen who have made the ultimate sacrifice during this time, and all who have served in the global war on terrorism, in the Persian Gulf, in Afghanistan, and in Iraq. As we honor their service to our country today, we also pray for their families and loved ones, and for all who have served our country so generously through the years. We pray for those who have been wounded, both physically and emotionally, during this time through their service. May we never as a nation forget their sacrifice. We pray as well today for those who stand the watch in all parts of the world in preserving what we hold dear, peace and freedom. We ask your blessing on our city, our state, and our country. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Those that have chairs, you can be seated. At this time, I'm going to ask the designees from the Gold Star families to head over to the monument for the unveiling, please. We're honoring the memory of Sergeant Charles Caldwell, U.S. Army National Guard, Captain Jack Selenius, U.S. Army, Private Dennis Thompson, U.S. Air Force, Corporal Kiera Durkin, U.S. Army National Guard, Lieutenant Christopher Smeglin, U.S. Navy, Specialist Donnie Nguyen, U.S. Army, Sergeant McDouglas Deegan, U.S. Army. As the Gold Star families make their way back to the podium area here, I'm going to make some introductions. We have a number of elected officials with us here today. This city and state and truly the country delegation always comes together to support our veterans. You'll be hearing shortly from Congressman Stephen Lynch. We have from the City Council President Ian Kane, Ward 1 Councilor David McCarthy, Ward 2 Councilor Richard Ash, Ward 4 Councilor James Devine, Councilor Daniel Minton, Ward 5, Councilor Large Noel DeBona, and Councilor Large Scott Campbell. From the state, we have Senator John Keenan, Representative Taki Chan, and from the county, we have District Attorney Michael Morrissey. School committee members Paul Brigoli, Tina Cahill, and Doug Guttrow. Thank you for being with us here today to honor our veterans. I also want to acknowledge, after the ceremony, you can get over and get a closer look to this magnificent, beautiful sculpture. And it was done by Skylight Studios and sculptor Robert Shore and his daughter. Robert is here. If you can just wave, Robert. Unbelievable work. Here he is, the front row. And I know it's not easy working with committees. And I'll rattle off the committee names. Thank them for their work on this. We have David Murphy, Commissioner Natural Resources. From the Cemetery Board of Managers, Susan Kindergan and George Bouchard. Quincy Police Department, Sergeant Dennis Keenan, Army veteran. James Edwards, an architect with Edwards and Holmes. And Christine Cugini, Director of Veteran Services, and Helen Murphy, Operations Director. This time I want to thank the Parade Committee. Jeff Hannon, Marine Corps veteran. Police Department, Paul Brown, Marine Corps veteran. Quincy Police Lieutenant Sean Darcy, Navy veteran. Director of Veteran Services, Christine, once again. Helen Murphy, Director of Operations, and all our city departments this morning for pulling together this beautiful ceremony. Department of Natural Resources, the Cemetery Division, Quincy Police and Fire Departments for all the work they did, and we thank their honor guards who are with us here as well. Department of Public Works and also the Department of Public Buildings. We thank them for contributing today toward making this a great event. Our first speaker this morning, Congressman Stephen Lynch. Since being sworn into Congress in 2001, Congressman Lynch has been a steadfast advocate, leader on both national security and veterans issues. He's a past chairman of the House Subcommittee on National Security, and since 2003, he's made nearly 20 visits to Afghanistan to meet with our troops and provide firsthand assessment of our operations in the region. He has worked throughout his career to ensure every man and woman who has served our nation in uniform receives appropriate health care and other services. He has co-sponsored and shepherded legislation to provide housing assistance to homeless veterans, educational benefits, and support services for veterans suffering from addiction, among a host of others. He's always been a great friend to our city. In fact, this monument we dedicate here today was made possible through federal funding that the Congressman secured. Congressman Stephen Lynch.
Good morning, everyone. What a beautiful morning. Tom Koch, thank you for that very generous introduction. To all my colleagues in government, Speaker Mariano, Senator Keenan, Representatives Taki Chan, Bruce Ayers, members of the Quincy City Council, General Jim McConville, General Joe Dunford, to all our active and all our military veterans, Gold Star families gathered in attendance here today. It is an honor, once again, to be here with all of you as we dedicate this monument to the brave men and women from Quincy who served our country during the Gulf War, the Iraq War, the war in Afghanistan, and the global war on terror. I'd like to take a moment to recognize the Gold Star families whose service members are being honored with the dedication of this monument. The families of Sergeant Charles T. Caldwell, United States Army National Guard, Captain Jack Selenius, U.S. Army, Lieutenant Christopher East Meglin, United States Navy, Specialist Donnie Nguyen, United States Army, Private Dennis C. Thompson, United States Air Force. Corporal Kara M. Durkin, United States Army National Guard. And Sergeant McDouglas Deegan, United States Army. You know, my mother-in-law, Helen Bailey Shaughnessy, she lived with my wife and I for about 25 years. She always said we lived with her, but after all, it was our house. She was a Gold Star sister. She lost her brother Arnie Bailey. He was killed in his first combat parachute jump over the Rhine in Operation Varsity in April 1945, just a number of weeks before the end of World War II in Europe. Arnie was 19 years old. You know, I watched my mother-in-law carry that burden as a Gold Star sister. She always said to me that Veterans Day, Memorial Day, days of remembrance, days like this were her favorite days. She would decorate the house like nobody's business. She said that it warmed her heart on those days because while she carried that burden as a Gold Star sister 365 days a year, and although she died in her 90s, it never left her. She felt on those days, days like this, days of remembrance, she said, I feel like my neighborhood of South Boston, my city, the state of Massachusetts, and my country, they carry that burden with me on those days. So it's really, really important that you are here today. Important to these Gold Star families that you share their burden. Our attendance today is important also to ensure that we don't forget the sacrifices and the challenges that Gold Star families, as well as active duty families and military veterans carry every single day. We must also ensure that they receive the treatment, the respect, and the care and benefits they are more deserving of for their patriotic duty to our country. You know, recently we had some success in Congress. We disagree on a lot of things, but there's one thing that Republicans and Democrats agree on in Congress, in every Congress, is the care and respect for our veterans. And recently in Congress, we enacted the Historic PACT Act, which expanded services and benefits to veterans who were exposed to toxic substances overseas, whether they were burn pits or Agent Orange, and also the benefits to their families, because often it is the caretaker, the family, that the burden falls on the most heavily for those veterans. To date, the VA has provided record levels of health care to veterans and their families, delivering more than $6.8 billion in earned PACT Act benefits to more than 1 million veterans and their survivors. Right here in Massachusetts, since the PACT Act was passed, we've been able to provide benefits to over 18,000 veterans and their families. You know, the city of Quincy has a rich and I think unprecedented tradition of military service to our country, answering the call to serve this country in all of its wars and conflicts. It is a part of the city of Quincy's DNA. And it can be easy for the following generations to forget those who served and paid the price for the freedom they enjoy today. But because of the leadership of Tom Koch and other leaders in this community, Quincy never forgets. Quincy never forgets its veterans. You raised Quincy continues to raise courageous young men and women who respect our military, and when asked to answer our country's call to duty, they do not shy away from answering that call. And today, with this dedication of this monument, we add to that tradition to make sure future sons and daughters of Quincy do not forget the sacrifices made by generations before them. So I want to thank Tom Koch for once again continuing to honor the men and women who have donned the uniform to defend our country. I want to thank all of our veterans and their families here today, not just for your service and your sacrifice, but also for your example. May God continue to bless the city of Quincy. May He bless our troops. May God continue to bless our Gold Star families. And may we help them carry their burden. And may God continue to bless these United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman. Our next speaker, General James C. McConville, United States Army, retired. A Marymount kid and a 1981 graduate of the United States Military Academy at West Point. General McConville was the 40th Chief of Staff of the United States Army, serving from 2019 to 2023. He was the commanding general for the legendary 101st Airborne Division and the Combined Joint Task Force 101 during Operational Enduring Freedom. He was the commander of the 4th Brigade, 1st Cavalry during Operation Iraqi Freedom. These are just a few among of the litany of combat command positions during his extraordinary and decorated career. His wife Maria is also a U.S. Army veteran, and all three of their children are serving in the United States Army. A great patriotic family. General McConville.
Well, thank you, Mayor, and it's a special day in Quincy because today we recognize those who have given all, and we recognize those that have served. And I am very honored and humbled here to be here today with so many distinguished veterans and so many wonderful Gold Star family members and so many who support our military and our nation. And I'd like to thank Mayor Koch and his team for remembering those who gave all and doing it in such a professional manner. I'd also like to recognize the veterans and families that are here today. Could I ask all the veterans just to raise your hand? Raise your hand. Look around and see how many veterans are here. How about giving them a hand, okay? Very, very special for those who serve. And I see a lot that continue to serve as first responders, and I'm very, very blessed to have them here today. And, I want to thank the veterans, for their service, for their sacrifice and their commitment to our nation, and quite frankly, making our great city of Quincy so proud. And although we have veterans from World War II, we have veterans from the Korean War, we have veterans from Vietnam and the Cold War, today we salute those who served in the Persian Gulf, in Iraq, Afghanistan, and the global war on terrorism. And every generation has its heroes, and this generation is no different. And you're all the heroes of this generation and will carry that legacy forward. When you think about it, 1% of Americans serve in our military, and you're a part of that 1%. And you all did your job extremely well. And you all made a difference for our nation in the world. And your service mattered. And I've said this before, but it's worth saying again, as I travel around the nation and the world, people ask me, what's going on in Quincy? Where do you get all these patriots? Where do you get all these leaders? Where do you get all these people that serve so well in the military? Is there something in the water up there? And I say, no, it's not in the water. It's in the people. The people in Quincy are special. Quincy is the home of presidents. It's the home of generals, admirals. It's the home of heroes. It's the home of patriots. But what Quincy is all about is people who love this country and are willing to put themselves in harm's way so other people can enjoy the freedom, the prosperity that we all have every single day. And so I want to thank all the veterans and the Gold Star family members for making this happen every single day that we enjoy. And we will never forget their sacrifice. We'll never forget their service. And again, I want to thank you all for coming out and supporting our troops and remembering our fallen. God bless this great nation. Keep those who serve in harm's way in your thoughts and prayers. God bless Quincy. Thank you.
Before I bring up our next speaker, I did want to acknowledge our Monday's Veterans Day speaker, Colonel James Kroll is with us. He was with us last night. He's with us here somewhere this morning. Thank you for being here. Also, Lieutenant Colonel of the United States Air Force, James Cohane, was with us last night, is also here with us this morning. We thank him for representing the Air Force. Our next speaker needs no introduction, much like General McConville. Another Marymount kid, an alum of St. Anne's School in Wollaston. General Dunford was the 19th chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, which is the highest ranking uniformed military officer in our nation, and principal military advisor to the President of the United States and the Secretary of Defense. From 2015 to 2019, he commissioned in the United States Marine Corps in 1977. General Dunford rose through the ranks to become the 36th Commandant of the Marine Corps. He commanded the 5th Marine Regiment during Operation Iraqi Freedom and served as commander of all U.S. and NATO forces in Afghanistan. He currently serves as the chairman of the board for the Semper Fi in America's Fund, which supports our wounded and ill, active duty personnel and veterans from all services. He's the chairman of the board of the Adams Presidential Center here in his hometown in Quincy. And I know this week we celebrate the Marine Corps birthday. Happy birthday, General, and to the Marines. General Dunford.
Mayor Koch, Congressman Lynch, elected officials, Gold Star family members, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm truly humbled to join you in honoring the sons and daughters of Quincy who answered the call to service in the Persian Gulf, Iraq, Afghanistan, and throughout the global war on terror. I'm also honored to join General Jim McConville today, a great soldier and combat leader who served 4 decades in uniform. I'm very appreciative, as Congressman Lynch and General McConville have said, that my hometown has conducted this event to honor the most recent generation of veterans. And while today's ceremony honors all veterans who have served since the Gulf War, we're particularly mindful of those who have died in service and their families. And this monument will help us fulfill our most sacred obligation to never forget. This weekend's events clearly reflect the values of the entire community, but it takes leadership to bring those values to action. And Mayor Koch, thanks for all you do to honor military service, and thanks for all you and Christine Cugini and your team do to support our veterans. I also want to echo your thanks to the monument and event committees. As we pause to remember our veterans, I'm mindful that the tradition of military service in Quincy continues. Many from Quincy remain in uniform and are deployed across the globe. Some are in harm's way, and I'd ask you to keep all of them in your thoughts and prayers. I also want to recognize the parents that are here today who have a son or daughter in uniform and thank them for raising men and women of commitment. I'm proud to say that I come from Quincy, the city of presidents, and as already been mentioned, we have a long and proud history of excellence in public service that of course dates back to John Adams and the Revolution. I'm particularly proud of the many in Quincy who have chosen to serve in uniform, and the list of natives in Quincy who have answered the call is long and distinguished. It includes John Hancock, World War II Medal of Honor recipients William Caddy and Everett Pope, courageous Vietnam War POWs Richard Stratton and Alan Brudno, and so many more. But today, as we dedicate this monument, we don't actually have to open the history books to find examples of those who have served honorably We just have to look around at the folks that are assembled here today at this dedication. Over the past few decades, a new generation of men and women from Quincy have stepped up. They've carried on a tradition of serving a cause greater than themselves. They've helped to write new chapters in our nation's history. You know, I can recall a couple of articles written years ago about this latest generation of veterans. The authors questioned whether this generation of veterans measured up to their parents and grandparents. I remember one article that talked about the joystick generation and said, I wonder if they have what it takes. Are they tough enough? From my perspective, the verdict is in. The generation we honor today has upheld the finest traditions of military service. This generation has met the challenges on their watch. And yes, this generation was tough enough. And I have absolute confidence in saying that based on my personal experience. My days as lieutenant, there were still World War II veterans on active duty. My mentors were Korean War veterans and Vietnam veterans. And universally, the members of those previous generations have said to me what I know to be true. Well, this generation of veterans that we recognize stood on the shoulders of World War II, Korea, and Vietnam veterans. Their mettle has also been tested. And in the crucible of combat, this generation of veterans have exhibited the same courage, honor, commitment, self-sacrifice as their predecessors. I was privileged to have a front row seat and watch those we honor today do all that we asked them to do and much more. For those veterans that are here today, I'm incredibly proud of my service, and not because I was a general or the Commandant of the Marine Corps or because I was the chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff, but simply because I wore the cloth of our nation and I stood in formation with you. And I hope that you are as proud of yourselves as I am of you and those you represent. In that broader context, the veterans honored today are simply links in a long chain of men and women from Quincy who sought to make a difference by living a life characterized by service. And if you look at it that way, the monument's less about recognizing any one of us as individuals and more about highlighting the values and traditions that are important here in Quincy. What we're honoring today is the idea of service, the calling to be part of something bigger than yourself, and the importance Quincy places on good citizens striving to make a difference. And Jim McConville mentioned it, only in traveling great distances from Quincy in my 42 years in uniform, and only in visiting places that don't actually have what we have here today, did I really gain an appreciation for what we really do have here in Quincy. And what I learned is that we can't take what we have for granted. I also learned that the real strength of our country and what's going to allow us to remain the land of the free and the home of the brave is the willingness of good citizens to answer the call to service. And my hope is that today's ceremony and the monument serve to remind us of what we have here and reminds us of our responsibilities to pass on those values and traditions and that sense of responsibility and accountability to the next generation. In closing, I'd simply ask you to remember that the price of freedom is still being paid by the families of those who didn't come home today, some represented here, and by those veterans who still carry the visible and invisible wounds of war. Today, we should all recommit to advocate for and take care of veterans and families who need our support, and not just because it's the right thing to do, and it is the right thing to do, but also because, as George Washington said after the Revolution, the willingness of future generations to serve in our military will be directly dependent upon how we have treated those who have served in the past. Once again, thank you for the honor of joining you here this morning. God bless the city of Quincy. God bless you all, and Semper Fidelis.
This time, military honors. Firing squad. Taps. I want to thank students Aaron Ernest and Anders Eshelman for doing taps, and firefighter Stephen Sweet for leading us in Amazing Grace. This concludes our formal program this morning. You're invited to the Quincy Lodge of the Elks at 254 Quarry Street for a luncheon. Thank you so much for being here. Your presence means everything to our veterans. God bless you all.